This is Monday with the Mayor. For WJTS, I'm Jurnee Davis. We're here in Ferdinand with Town Manager Chris James. Chris James, how are you doing today?
Well, drier than I was over the weekend, Jurnee.
Definitely. We've had a lot of rain come through. You want to touch on that a little bit?
A little bit. We had, I don't have an official rain gauge amount from our utility complex, but for the most part in town, 12 to 13 inches of rainfall from when it started about 5 o'clock Friday through the bulk of the heavy stuff on Sunday. And really Sunday, once you got through the early morning hours, it was more of a misting drizzle. It wasn't really rain as compared to what we had the rest of the weekend. But just need to send out appreciation to folks for their patience in this situation, because that much water in that time frame, it overwhelmed all of our storm drains. There are retention ponds throughout town through various projects and things. Those were full and to overflowing. There were places that got some floodwaters that don't normally get floodwater, but from 5 to 6 o'clock Friday afternoon, we had probably 3 to 4 inches of rain, just that hard of a rain in that short a time span. And that filled up a lot of places very quickly. And even after it dwindled down with the day-long heavy rain that we had Saturday, a lot of those structures filled back up, and there just wasn't anywhere for the water to go. When it rushes that hard, especially coming off of fields and other properties where there's old corn stalks or tree limbs or branches or things, it is going to pick up debris off of your property and wash it all the way downstream and cause an issue at my house at the end of the line. It's not my tree branches, it was Jurnee's, but you can't control what the water is going to do with things. And we ran into some issues where some of the culverts kind of got blocked over and caused the water to back up more. We had some guys go out at various times over the weekend, get the backhoes out, scoop out some material, and then all of a sudden it's just like this gush of water where it finally was able to break free and start to dissipate downstream. But we ran into a lot of that over the weekend. I want to thank the residents in town. Some folks that had neighbors had issues, they pitched in, helped out with sump pumps or shop vacs or both, and various other materials to help suck water out of basements and help them out, and get any sandbags up if they needed to around certain low-level doorways and things. And we're hoping for a nice stretch of some dry weather now where things can just kind of dry out and get back to normal, and then hope for a more normal autumn season ahead of us.
Definitely. It's been a long time since we've gotten that much rain.
Yes, definitely.
With that, the 23rd Street repaving project is kind of moving right along. Weather's kind of just stopped it just a little bit, but it's heading towards the end, right?
We are in the final stages of that. We were fortunate that CalCar was able to get in, and they had already done the base coating for the westbound and the parking lanes, and had shifted over to the removal of the concrete on the eastbound lanes. They got that paved on Thursday, and then into Friday they were then able to finish out the base coat and were able to surface coat all of the eastbound lane from 162 to the bypass, and got about 2/3 of the westbound and the parking lane with the surface coat. They still had some to do when their day ended Friday. They weren't really weathered out, just happened to time out. They hit the end of their day. And then they were, I think, watching the radar and saw what was coming. You don't want to try to put down hot asphalt on wet. It messes with the mix and causes issues. So they kind of read their crystal ball and said, here's a good place to stop. And so they still have about 1/3 of that to get paved. If the weather held out, they were going to try and finish it up today. The weather the rest of the week is good, so if they decided today wasn't really the best chance, then they should be out on Tuesday and get that finished up. But they will be done, what they call substantial completion of the paving, prior to Friday, which was the contractual end date for that project. They started right after Heimat Fest, and we're set to finish it right before Folk Fest, and they're going to be on target for that.
Talking about Folk Fest, that's exciting. Been a very, very busy time for you having all this preparation that goes into it. So with that, would you want to share a little bit about how Folk Fest kind of came together and got started?
Folk Fest came about, this is our 9th year. Discussions began probably close to 10 years ago. This was predated my time as town manager, but the town of Ferdinand participated in what was called the Hometown Competitiveness Program. Sue Elsperman, presently president of Ivy Tech, used to be lieutenant governor. She was a state rep before that. And before that, when she was a quote-unquote working teacher at USI, she was very involved in this process. And in a way, it was kind of like a comprehensive planning package. And you broke it into the different pillars and what is good, what is lacking, where can we get better at. And one of the things that came up was a lack of arts in the area. I know Jasper has its art center, and there's a lot of great programs that come in, but outside of that, there wasn't really activities other than the traditional summer fests, the Strassen Fest, Heimat Fest, Herbs Fest, and Huntingburg, that you had these events. And so a small group of volunteers, my predecessor, Mark Stezik, and several other individuals got together. There had been some ideas kind of kicked around about doing a program, and they dovetailed together. And for the last 9 years, counting this weekend ahead, we've gathered the third Saturday of September at 18th Street and had our folk festival. It started out fairly small, not a huge amount of vendors and a smaller grouping of artists. It went over very well that day, and it's grown year by year. We're about, in some ways, as big as we can be for the land space that we have to work with. We've got the main stage for the music artists. We have a market stage in our vendor area for what I call in-between music. So when the main stage acts are wrapping up and getting ready for their next act, we have performers on the market stage that perform for about a 15-minute shot, so there's still music going on. We've got all of the vendors, plenty of children's activities. We'll have Big Bounce Funhouse out in the baseball field again. We'll have a variety of programs in the lower shelter house for the kids. I think there's going to be a drum circle this year. Just a lot of everything for kids young and not so young throughout the day. Some folks will come just because they want to go to a certain vendor, because they know they've got certain items that they're going to, some people do their Christmas shopping. They know, hey, this place is there. I'm going to stock up on some of my Christmas gifts and never pay the first bit of attention to the music. Other folks come for the music, and then they say, oh, you've got vendors here, and they may, in between certain acts, they'll stroll through the grounds and end up buying some things that they weren't even expecting to do. And then we've got a great selection of food on Food Row. I think we have about a dozen vendors along there, and then 2 or 3 other food vendors scattered in the crowd. So you won't go hungry or thirsty, for that matter. And the only money you spend is what you would spend at these booths. There is no admission fee. There's no parking charge. There's no cover charge. None of that. This is all free to the public, and that's whether you show up and set up your spot on the hill at 7 o'clock Saturday morning, or you get there right before the last song of the night. It's the same cost, zero. And we are eternally grateful to our corporate benefactors. Our presenting sponsors this year are Best Home Furnishings and Master Brand Cabinets. Our main stage sponsor again this year is Next Era Energy Resources, and we've got plenty of other folks that they give dollars behind the scenes that we expend, because these artists don't come in and play. They may play out of the goodness of their heart, but they've got an accountant that says you need to pay something too. The accountants don't have good hearts necessarily, and that's not a slam on accountants. But they come, they love playing at these affairs, and they do get paid, and so we need the funds to pay for that. And so that's where our corporate benefactors come in. That's all sort of behind the scenes. We keep that money, we pay the bills, and folks they just come and spend the day, and it's all free of charge. And then, like I say, the only money you spend is when you go to one of the food booths to get your lunch or your supper or a snack or something of that nature, or you go and buy one of the many great items that our arts and crafts vendors may have, whether it's handmade, what they call it, steampunk jewelry and things like that, or recrafted materials for blankets or afghans, or homemade candles or bath oils. And I mean, there's a whole variety of things. That's the only place that you will spend money, is if you physically go to those booths and buy things.
Okay, all right, great. And are there any particularly interesting acts or artists that people might be looking forward to or know about ahead of time?
Well, we hope all of them, but our headlining artist this year is Dar Williams. She's been on the scene, as it were, close to 30 years, and she performs at these types of events throughout the nation. She's our headline act. We'll start the day right about 11 o'clock with several of our singer-songwriter performers. We've started that the last couple of years because it's not a judged event anymore. There's no actual trophy handed out to any one act, but we give them the opportunity to be sort of co-opening acts. So you'll get your couple of songs of time, I'll get mine, and the other artists, they get a chance to sing one or two songs, and to a bigger audience than maybe they normally would perform for. And then after that, at 12 noon, Brother Son will hit the stage. They are a local band, Colin Hildebrand and his guys. They've performed on the market stage the last couple of years, so they've graduated, if you will, to the main stage. So they're on at noon. Then at 12:45, Zion, and he's kind of a reggae folk style artist, and there's a variety of styles of folk music, as you'll find out, not just on this day, but if you scroll back from our previous acts, there's all kinds of genres and branches of it. But Zion will be on stage at 12:45. Bridge 19, they're out of Louisville. They'll hit the main stage at 1:45. Heather Maloney will play at 3 o'clock. Then Appalachian, which is a mixture of Latino/Appalachian music. Again, another variant of folk style, and a very different one in that regard. They'll be on the stage 4:15. Last Revel is at 5:45, and they're the lead up to Dar Williams. She'll hit the stage about 7:30 and play till roughly 9 o'clock. And then on the market stage, in between those acts coming on and off stage, we've got a variety of performers on there as well. So it's going to be a day full of music, and like I say, we've got about a dozen to 15 total food booths on the property, another 36 arts and crafts vendors, and probably 15 or so educational and environmental vendors as well, passing out information on recycling, or I know there's one booth this year, they're going to help folks determine voter registration, or is their registration up to date, and in case they've changed addresses or something, make sure they're good to go for the next election cycle and things of that nature. And a lot of environmental related booths will be on hand as well. So we've got just a little bit of everything for everyone. Little Rexing's petting zoo will be back. They were a big hit last year. They've got a skunk who was a huge success. Everybody wanted to hold him, and they'll have some other animals as well. So you come, we started about 10 o'clock really on the market stage till about 9 that evening. The arts and crafts vendors, they're there from roughly 11 to 6. Food vendors will go until they run out of food or until the show ends, depending on what happens first. And depending on the year, we've had vendors, they've run out of food, and they've even added to their previous year's amount, and they still sell out, which is a great thing. We just encourage folks to come and just prepare to be entertained through the day. If you want to get a good spot on the hill, get there earlier, and some folks even show up Friday evening, as we've got the stage up and the sound and light tech is doing his thing. Folks will just kind of pull up into the field and they'll plant their blanket, or I think the soccer team or one of the teams, they have a little two-piece sofa that they put down on the ground and kind of mark their spot. So you can kind of pre-designate your position Friday evening, or come early Saturday, plant your chairs and blankets, and then go run your Saturday errands, and then come back and your spot is marked and you're there for the day. But we just encourage folks to come out and take part in the folk festival. It's going to be a lot of fun. The weather as of right now, is going to be pretty fair, non-Gordon related, which is a true blessing in its own right. And we're just looking forward to entertaining several thousand of our closest friends and neighbors on Saturday.
Definitely. Is there anything anybody should know about parking? Where's that going to be at? Just
Parking for the what I'll call the veterans of coming to the Folk Fest, the community center parking lot is available for parking. They intentionally do not book an event that weekend so that there's no congestion there. But park at the community center lot is your best bet. There is parking, lesser amounts of parking in the parking lot at 18th Street. We'll have one row set up for handicap availability. A lot of the arts and crafts vendors and other folks, they'll get a lot of those spots early because they get there to set up. And then if you follow the what I call the cul-de-sac to the back, you can park up there. The grassy knoll up by the basketball court, that's available for parking as well. And a lot of folks, as the day goes on, they'll even park up by the library and the Wise parking lot, depending on what's available, and then they just kind of follow the pathway through. There are places that are no parking, and it'll be coned off so that Jurnee doesn't try to sneak in where she's not supposed to. On 18th Street and especially on 20th Street, we'll have that coned off. One side of it is already pre-posted as no parking, and then we'll cone the other side, and that's mainly to allow emergency personnel to get through if need be, whether it's an ambulance or a fire truck, so they have room to get through. Last year, some of that area didn't get coned off and folks filled up the spots, and we were fortunate we didn't have to have that driving lane. It would have been pretty tricky, so we're going to kind of double down on our efforts there to make sure we keep that lane open for emergency personnel to get through. We have an ambulance on site throughout the day in case one of the fest goers is overcome by heat or illness or something of that nature. So we take all the precautions that we can for that, and we just try to focus on the positive, and it's as family friendly as you can make an event be. At least that's our goal, and we encourage everyone to come out Saturday.
okay. And so basically parking, kind of up to you. Just mind the cones and then follow the music up to the event.
Pretty much so, yes.
And is there a website or something people can get more information at?
They can go to our website. It's ferdinandfolkfestival.com. We're posting and have continued to post updated and more current information. By the end of the week, we hope to have a PDF, a printable map that shows, you can print it out and got a visual of, okay, here's where the main stage is, here's where the vendors are, try to figure, and where parking may or may not be for folks that are from out of the area coming in because they want to see Dar Williams perform or Last Revel or one of those acts, and that may not be familiar with our setup. They can print that out so they have a, I guess you can say, a running start at finding a place to park or where they want to hit. And then we've got drop-down menus you can click on and see who the food vendors are. We list what they offer, and we try to have each vendor have kind of one specialty item, and so not everyone is going to be doing the same thing. You know, burgers and dogs, I mean, that's kind of a, everybody does that, but somebody may do turkey tenders, or someone else may do barbecue ribs, or there may be a vegetarian meal of some kind. So we try to keep, each booth has its own specialty item, and then after that you just kind of catch as catch can. And we've got a couple of different, we've got an ice cream, Libby's Ice Cream will be back this year. We've got a gelato booth again this year, so if you want regular ice cream or fancy ice cream, you can pick between the two, and Libby's is very good either way. But you can kind of hit and mix with what you want, and just have a great day of it.
All right, sounds excellent. So once again, FerdinandFolkFest.com.
Yes, FerdinandFolkFestival.com, and all the details will be there. And Ferdinand News this week will have a special pull-out section, and it'll have oodles and gobs of information, everything we've talked about and tons more, so they can make sure they get that as well and read up on it and make a note for different vendor booths. If they want to make sure, is this vendor back again this year, they make a little star by it so they know to get there early and stock up on whatever the item is that they have for sale. So Just like the ads always say, come early and stay all day. That's the best thing we can offer.
All right. Well, sounds great. Thank you for meeting with us today and talking about this.
Well, thank you, Jurnee.
All this going on this weekend at the park.
Yes.
And everything gets underway at, was it 10 you said?
About 10 o'clock is when the market stage will begin. The vendors will be set up and completely done by about 11, and that's when the main stage music begins. And then we go until about 9 o'clock, give or take, depending on if one of the artists runs a little bit long, or if Dar wants to go a little longer. We're not going to run up on stage and say, no, you have to stop now. When she's done, then we're done. So about 9 o'clock, give or take a few minutes. So.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds great. This has been Monday with the Mayor. We're here in Ferdinand with Town Manager Chris James. For WJTS TV, I'm Jurnee Davis.